These are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar, 24/7 Dad, 3rd edition. This is brought to you by National Fatherhood Initiative. I'm Krista Sutherland, and I'll be assisting with today's webinar. Prior to this webinar, you should have received an email containing a link to some of the videos and other information presented today. If for some reason you have not received this email, please type your email address in the question portion of your control panel, and I will send it to you during this webinar shortly here. Chris Brown, President of NFI, will be presenting today's webinar. Chris, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Krista, and welcome everyone. Good afternoon to most of you, and if some of you are out on the West Coast, good morning to you as well. Welcome to this introduction to the 3rd editions of the 24/7 Dad programs. And this particular webinar is for current users of the programs, and we're conducting a very similar webinar tomorrow for folks who are interested in using the program but do not currently use it. So if for some reason you have registered for a webinar and you don't currently use the program, I certainly encourage you to attend tomorrow as well, or instead. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start the webinar, and feel free to ask any questions that you like, and I will do my best to answer those at the close of our time here this afternoon, and again, for those of you on the West Coast this morning. Okay, so let's just get started with our first poll question, which is, do you currently use the 1st or 2nd edition of 24/7 Dad, either the AM or the PM programs? Krista?
Okay, you should see a poll up on your screen, and if you could please begin to vote. I see some of you have already started, and I'll give you a moment to respond to that, and then I will show you the results of that poll. All right, let me give you a few seconds more. Okay, very good. Let me close the poll here, and I'll share the results with you. All right, as you can see, do you currently use the 1st or 2nd edition of 24/7 Dad, AM or PM? 91% of you currently do use it, and 9% say you have not.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you all for participating. This is a poll just to make sure that you are in the correct webinar. See, the majority of you the vast majority do use the program. For those of you who said that you do not currently use the program, you will still benefit from participating today. Tomorrow's webinar is more designed for you, in that it provides a broader background on the 24/7 Dad program than you will get here. This particular webinar assumes that you know something about 24/7 Dad based on the fact that you use this, but I certainly don't want to scare you off if for some reason you register today because you can't participate tomorrow. So feel free to stay with us if you like, and you can also register for tomorrow's webinar and get a little bit more information about the 24/7 Dad programs. All right, fantastic. Okay, so here are the objectives for our time here today. First of all, I'm going to answer 3 questions for you. What has not changed about the 24/7 Dad programs? That will be the basis for our discussion. What's new and improved in the 3rd editions? And then finally, why should you use the 3rd edition? Hopefully by the time I get to that question, you will have already decided, yes, I definitely want to move on to the 3rd edition from either the 2nd or the 1st edition. But if not, I'm going to summarize why I think it's very, very important for you to consider using the 3rd edition. And in answering those questions, you're going to learn about why NFI created the 3rd editions, the process that we use to create the 3rd editions, specific changes and additions to the program, training on the curricula if you are interested in getting trained on the curricula. As you know, we design all of our curricula to be used out of the box. So you can purchase them, and if you're a really good facilitator, you can just start running the program as is, and we provide all the guidance. But many folks do want to receive training on the programs and we have those training options available, and I'll quickly go over those options at the close of our time today. And then finally, what is the cost of the curricula, and how do I go about purchasing the curricula? Okay, well, why the third editions? Well, frankly, it was time. We released the second editions in 2010, and we released the first editions in 2003. Facilitators of the program and our staff have learned much about ways to improve the program since we released the second editions. We have learned more based on research and evidence about how to help fathers become involved, responsible, and committed. We want to get that information out there and into our programs. Just in general, improving our programs is very critical for effectiveness and then also customer service. And no other nationally available fathering program or curriculum that we're aware of has undergone two major revisions. It's very important to keep in mind why so many people across the country use 24/7 Dad is we are constantly focused on making it the best program available, and that's why we release subsequent editions of it. So what is the process that we use to create the third editions? Well, as we've done since the release of the first editions about 12 years ago, we tracked feedback from facilitators and staff since the inception of the second editions in 2010. Despite our best efforts, from time to time we discover typos and other grammatical errors. Sometimes we discover those ourselves. Sometimes they're passed along by people who use the programs. We have tracked the effectiveness of activities, again, through feedback and trial and error that facilitators undergo and take on in using our programs. We've had requests for additional tools. So as people implement the programs, they've said, hey, what about this? What about that? This would help us to be more effective in using the programs. And these tools then, they're the types of tools that will enhance learning, increase the engagement of obviously the fathers who go through the program, but also the facilitators. We want to make sure that the programs are not just effective from the father's perspective, but they're also fun to facilitate and they're a joy to facilitate for facilitators. And then finally, that increased retention. As you guys know, one of the biggest challenges in running a fatherhood program, regardless of whether it's 24/7 Dad or something else, is retaining fathers' participation. And then we've gathered feedback from participants in our 24/7 Dad training institutes. In addition to, the benefit that the training participants receive going through our training institutes on how to run the 24/7 Dad programs, it's a benefit to us because it's a great lab, if you will, or a great feedback mechanism for folks to say, hey, I'm seeing this program. For those who do the 2-day version of our training institute, they get to practice, facilitating. They say, hey, what about this? What about that? And they give us feedback. And we gather that and use it as we moved into the redesign of our programs for subsequent editions. So lots of different types of feedback there. We also have continued to track and analyze qualitative and quantitative data on impact of fathers since the inception of the first editions in 2003. And if you go to our website, punch in our URL, www.fatherhood.org/evaluation, you'll see many of the evaluations that have been done of the program that we actually post for people to review. And then we just get general feedback. People send us, hey, we've completed the pre and post survey of the fathers in our program. We want to send that to you. So they send that information to us, the quantitative and the qualitative data, and we gather that information and use it as well. And then one of the things that we've been very focused on, particularly since the second edition, is monitoring the research on behavior change. It's done in a variety of fields, looking at that research and determining whether it has really good fit and application, one for promoting responsible fatherhood, and two, for promoting it through the 24/7 Dad programs. All right, so in terms of the changes to the program and the program's components, well, as I said at the beginning, what hasn't changed, that's going to be the basis for starting to talk about the changes for the in the program. So what's tried and true? What do we still have in terms of components? Well, The basic components of the program have not changed, and I'll talk about some additional components in just a little bit. But what you've become familiar with, we've continued. So we've got the facilitator's manual with the two parts, the program guide that helps you understand how to run the program, and the session guide, which actually is the step-by-step processes used to conduct the sessions in the programs. And we still have the fathering handbook for the dads to use during the program and to use as a leave behind, as a takeaway and a reference after the program ends. We still have the CD-ROM with all of the handouts that you need to reproduce for some of the sessions. It still contains the evaluation tool with the scoring worksheet and also the instructions. That hasn't changed. And we also have the different marketing materials, the flyers and the postcards, etc. One of the things that we have done, however, is now all of those marketing materials are available in Spanish. And those are not on the CD, but they are on our website right now. We've actually created a brand new resource page for 24/7 Dad facilitators, and you see the URL here. I'll pause just a minute for you guys to record that and write it down. This gives you the ability to go there, and some of the resources that are part of the kit we also put there in case you lose them or misplace them or something like that. You can download certain things that are on the CD-ROM, but also we've got some additional things there that are not part of the kit that we will add to over time so that you will always have access to the latest information about the programs in between editions. And then, of course, it also includes a press release that you can use to publicize the fact that you're running the 24/7 Dad programs in your community. Okay, in terms of the facilitator's manual, what's new and improved? Let's look at the program guide. And again, just as a reminder, that is the portion of the facilitator's manual that helps you understand the background of the program, what is the basis for it, how do you run it effectively, how do you market it effectively, etc. What we've done is we've added detailed information on the behavior change theories that contribute to the framework of the 24/7 Dad programs. We've revised the logic model, not greatly, but slightly, to consider some of the additional components that we've added to the program. And for those of you who need to use a logic model in grant applications and just to communicate generally with folks about how the program is designed to work, that's a very important revision for you to be aware of. Very, very important addition is the background on the enhancements to the third editions, particularly the emphasis on habit formation. And I'll be talking more about habit formation as we progress through this hour today, because that, in a nutshell, is where the improvements focus on, is helping dads become more adept at establishing the habits of an involved, responsible, and committed father. We've added additional reading that you can do to enhance your facilitation skills. And then we've updated NFI resources that have been developed since the last edition in 2010 that we have found and that facilitators have found can facilitate and enhance additional fathering and relationship skills development, as well as that improved organization's ability from a capacity building perspective to implement an effective 24/7 Dad program. So let me just show you briefly where those changes exist in the new manual. This is giving you a little bit of a preview here of what the manual looks like. It is very similar from a design perspective. We really haven't changed anything about how it's kind of set up and arranged. But you see this section right here? That's a brand new section that really describes the 24/7 Dad framework. And we titled it Changing Behavior When Behavior Change is Hard, because you folks know that this is not easy work. There's some dads who come in and they're ready to go, and they change and they become great dads, and they're really excited about it. But for a lot of the dads we work with, you work with, it's very, very challenging to get them to change and to become better dads. So this is the entire framework that the 24/7 Dad programs are built upon. So theories such as social learning theory, and specifically how does that theory apply to father involvement, and specifically the 24/7 Dad programs. This is a very important framework called Switch framework. And there's actually a book called Switch by Chip and Dan Heath, and it's referred to later on in the manual in the readings to help you become a more effective facilitator. But we're really going to encourage people now to get that particular book because it is an important framework for understanding how the 24/7 Dad programs work, but that you can use to become a better facilitator and a better fatherhood program director, or whatever your role might be in relation to the fatherhood program. So it provides that particular framework as well in how the 24/7 Dad programs use it. And again, here's the logic model over here. As I mentioned earlier, it's enhanced somewhat based on some of the changes that we've made. Okay, now we're ready for the second poll, and that question is, do you currently use videos to enhance either the AM or the PM programs? Krista?
Yes, okay, so I've gone ahead and I've launched this poll, so you should be seeing it on your screen, and I see that some of you are beginning to vote, so I'll give you a minute here to look over it and cast your vote, and then I will share those results with you. Okay, I see that some are still voting here, so I'll just wait a second longer. Okay, terrific. All right, let me close this and then I will share the results with you. As you can see, 44% of you said yes, you currently do use videos. 56% of you said that you currently do not.
Okay, great. All right, thanks. So, the results of this poll really reflect something that we have wanted to do for a long time with the 24/7 Dad programs, which is to add videos to enhance it, both from the father's perspective in terms of learning, but also from the facilitator's perspective, and trying to integrate some additional tools that the facilitators find enjoyable, but also that make the program come alive a bit more than without something like that. And as you know, men tend to be very visual learners, and so that's another reason why so many people out there who use the 24/7 Dad programs use videos. So that's good information to know. And so for those of you who currently use videos, I think you'll be very, very pleased to learn about what we've done in that arena. And also for those of you who don't, I'm sure maybe you've had this thought, yes, I'd like to add videos, how can I do it, that kind of thing. So in terms of the facilitator's manual session guide, the actual sessions of the 24/7 Dad programs, we've added more than 30 optional videos to each program, comprised of approximately 20 animated videos and 10 what we call stories of impact. And I'll talk about both sets of videos in just a minute. But I want to emphasize the word optional. We didn't want to add videos that you would be forced to use. In other words, if you didn't use them, it would make the program much less effective, or you couldn't even really run the program any longer without that. We wanted to keep it optional because we know that there are some facilitators who, for whatever reason, either do not want to or cannot use videos. So they are optional, but they are completely integrated now into the sessions of the 24/7 Dad program. So in terms of the animated videos, they are actually used during every single session. There is an animated video that you can use now to replace completely the warm-up activity that you do, the 5 to 10 minute warm-up activity that's a part of each session. And one other activity, either completely or in part. It just depends on the activity. Some of the animated videos cover the entire activity. Some of them only cover a portion of those. Those that cover only a portion, and regardless of what they cover, complete instructions about how to integrate those in the new session guide. The stories of impact reflect the success of the program from diverse dads' points of view. And these are independently created, most of them are independently created videos. Perhaps one of you out there who's joined us today created one of the ones that we're using. But what we've done is we've, heard about and learned about and perused YouTube and other sources to identify organizations that have actually created stories of impact of the 24/7 Dad programs. And so we've collected these all onto a DVD, and our recommendation is to use them during the first few sessions to increase retention. So our recommendation is to use them at the very end of the first and second sessions, and you can use them in any combination, and you can use as many of them as you want. And because they reflect a diverse set of dads, you can pick and choose what you think would best represent and have the most impact on your fathers. To increase retention and get them excited about and be able to identify with the kinds of guys who are out there that are being changed by the program. That's one of the things that reflects the research that we've continued to monitor on effective behavior change, this idea of identification. The more people identify with others who have gone through a similar challenge, the more likely they are to stick with it and change themselves. You can view samples of these animated videos at that particular new 24/7 Dad facilitator resource page that I mentioned. And again, the URL is repeated here. You'll see two examples in terms of the animated videos of the warm-up activities, one from the AM and one from the PM program, and of some of the other activities as well, one for the AM and one for the PM program. So you get a feel for what those look like. The stories of the impact videos, you can actually view those at two locations. And both of those URLs are here. The first one is for the independently created videos. And then the second is from what we call our Fatherhood Changes Everything series that we created for the celebration of NFI's 20th anniversary in 2014. And there are 10 of those videos that we created with some professional assistance that also show the impact of the program. So with all of those videos combined, I'm confident that you'll find some that you can combine that'll be relevant for the dads in your particular program. In addition to the videos, we've added what's called the My 24/7 Dad checklist, and I'll show you the checklist in just a moment. Very, very important addition because it really is the central tool that you can now use to increase the likelihood that the fathers are going to apply what they learn as they move through the program in a very practical way, in a customized way for them, their unique situation. And you will increase the chance that they will create the habits of an involved, responsible, and committed father. And it does so through this idea of deliberate practice. So the more that the fathers practice the items that they will identify as part of their own customized checklist, the more likely they are to ingrain those pro-fathering habits. And so it's integrated into each session, and it now becomes the focal point of the final session. So the most significant change we made from a session perspective was to session 12, where we've actually changed the name from Celebration to My 24/7 Dad Checklist. So the idea is that, sorry, not exactly sure what happened, that at the very end they will take all of what they've learned throughout the program, all of the things that they've identified up to that point that they might want to include on a final checklist. I am sorry about what's happening with my computer. Hopefully this will clear itself up. and they leave the program with their own customized 24/7 Dad checklist. So they customize a checklist to make it relevant for their unique situation. So, if they're resident, if they're non-resident, if they're married, if they're not married, they can customize that checklist based on what they've learned throughout the program. We've created 3 different formats for the checklist. There's a hard copy format that exists on the CD-ROM now that you can print out and give to dads. There's an online version on our website that dads can actually go to and fill out themselves and download and print, or that you can do that as well if you want, for some reason you lose a CD or something like that. There's an online version that you can access and download. And then we have actually created an Android app version called 24/7 Dad to Go, and I'll be talking about that app in just a little bit, because it's much more than the checklist. And it's a very exciting resource that we've added to the 24/7 Dad programs. But let's just take a closer look at the 24/7 Dad checklist. Okay, and this is the PDF version. As you can see, the father would enter in his name up here in this field, what the week is. For this week could be, January the 19th. What are his main reasons and motivators for completing the action items on his checklist? In just a little bit, I'll be talking about a new session for the programs, which is an optional introductory session. During that session, one of the main ideas, or one of the main purposes of it, is to actually identify what motivates these dads to enroll in the program and what will motivate them to continue to enroll. So you can have that information at the start of the program and use it to increase retention. But throughout that session, and then as the guys go through the program, you're going to be focusing them even more on what motivates them to be involved in the lives of their children. And they're actually going to record this information on their checklist. There are instructions for how to complete the checklist and examples of what checklist items should look like. And we are even using a format that research has shown makes it more likely for people to actually take action on checklist items. Backing up for a minute, just to talk about this more broadly, again, from a research and evidence-based and evidence-informed perspective, checklists have been found in a variety of fields to increase individuals' ability to follow through on pro-social, pro-healthy behaviors. And the research is very clear that they work, and that's why we're including it in the 24/7 Dad programs. Checklists are a great tool for habit formation, which is, if you think about it, that's what we're trying to do with dads. We're trying to get them to establish the habits of an involved, responsible, committed father. So it becomes part of who they are, not just something else that they do, but it becomes a very, very much a part of who they are. And so even when you look at this checklist, it's not just a checklist that we kind of came up with out of thin air. We thought, oh, it would be a great idea. It's actually based on a lot of good research, and even the way that we encourage people to talk about their checklist items, to actually organize what they say and how they write them down, is actually based on what works, what research shows works. And so they will identify checklist items that they can do daily, weekly, monthly, or maybe it's just one time. And they write them in here, and they can just simply check them off. And we have it in both black and white and color versions. So, a lot of times we find that people don't have the ability or don't want to print off a colored document, and so we always like to try to provide them in black and white as well. That gives you an idea of the 24/7 Dad checklist. Okay, so poll number 3. Do you currently use the Fathering Handbook? Krista?
Okay, and I just launched that, and I'll wait here a second. Let you tally your votes. Okay. See, most of you have voted. I'll give you a few more seconds here. All right, and let me share those results with you. 84% of you currently do use the Fathering Handbook, and 16% do not.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, Krista.
Mm-hmm.
Well, fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that the vast majority of you use the Fathering Handbook, because as I'm sure you've discovered, it's a great resource, and it's a very important part of the learning process for the fathers. And again, we know from feedback from fathers that they absolutely appreciate the Fathering Handbook, both to use during the program and after they leave. And so the Fathering Handbook, I mean, the changes to it are minimal but important. The key change is an addition, which is what's called a My 24/7 Dad worksheet. So at the end of every session now, as you close out the session, before you do the brief evaluation of it by, the portion where you ask them, questions that help you gauge how much they've learned during the session, you will have them quickly go through an exercise where they will think about, reflect upon what they've learned and what are some potential action items that they would maybe eventually put on their final 24/7 Dad checklist. And it's very free-flowing, it's very open, and so they can identify action items that of any periodicity, daily, weekly, monthly. They are limited in the number that they can identify for two reasons. One is time, and two, most importantly, you want to get them focused on what they think will have the most impact. So you'll ask them to identify up to 3 items that they could potentially include on their final 24/7 Dad checklist. So again, the dads will customize it and make it relevant for them, very practical. And then when they get to the very end, to this revised session 12, they will use the worksheets from sessions 1 through 11. All they have to do is flip back through their handbook to create the final checklist during session 12. We've also added 2 tearaway, they're perforated reminder cards on the inside front cover that include the 5 characteristics of a 24/7 dad, 10 affirmations for their kids that they can give to their kids, a reminder to use the checklist, and they can place this anywhere that makes sense for them. Put it on a refrigerator, put one in their wallet, etc., or they can even give one to another dad or a friend. And the pocket cards are inside the Spanish Fathering Handbooks as well, so they've been translated too. So let's take just a quick look at that new resource. And here it is. The characteristics of a 24/7 dad, the 5 characteristics, a reminder to use their My 24/7 Dad checklist, and then 10 affirmations for their kids. So that's another nice takeaway and a quick way for them to just reinforce and reflect upon, particularly those 5 characteristics of a 24/7 dad after the program ends. Okay, so continuing with the new and improved third editions, on the CD-ROM, as I mentioned earlier, we've now included an optional introductory session that you can use to ease the dads into the program. So they're not just jumping right into the 24/7 Dad program, the characteristics and that kind of thing. What we've learned from feedback, but also from the implementation of some other curricula that we've designed since the 2nd edition, is that an introductory session can be very, very helpful, particularly if you've got a particularly challenging group to work with, you're anticipating that, or you know that ahead of time, or if you just you like the idea of easing them into a program, and then also creating like a context in which to learn more about the dads so that you can better customize the program and also increase their retention, we really recommend that if you can, you use this particular introductory session. And what you'll be able to do during this session, in addition to easing the dads into the program, is learn more about those dads that comprise each unique group. Now, for many of you, depending on your situation, you may know a lot about the dads ahead of time, and that's fantastic. And so you may feel like you really don't need to. They can just jump right in and do just fine. That's why this is an optional session and not required. But it will help you, regardless of how much you know about the dads, to better customize the program, because I think even if you know a lot about the dads, it'll help you learn even more. One of the main things this session accomplishes is to help you identify their motivators for enrollment and retention and getting that information directly from the dads. It's very, very important. And it's also important to keep in mind that a motivator for enrollment is not necessarily the same as a motivator for retention. And so you'll be able to tease out those two different motivators. It may be the same, but in case they're different, you can tease those out and you can say, okay, for this dad, I know what motivates him. For that dad, I know what motivates him. And if the dads are struggling at some point, if they don't show up for, let's say, the second or third session, you can use that particular information to motivate them to come back and certainly to continue to motivate the guys to come on a consistent basis. And you can use just generally what you learn throughout the program, but especially during session 12, when you would actually use flip chart paper that you would either record on or that the dads would record on regarding these motivators, and you'd actually refer them back to that now during session 12 so that they can record that information on their My 24/7 Dad checklist, and also as a check to see whether those motivators have changed over time, and they may over the course of a few months. So very, very important introductory session. I think one that you would find to be very useful. It includes the My 24/7 Dad checklist, so you can print them out again, black and white or in color, and all of the handouts now, and the pre and the post survey and the checklist are in Spanish. The only thing in terms of resources for dads that are not in Spanish are the online and the app version of the checklist. Those are only in English. The hard copy of the checklist is in Spanish, both color and black and white. Now the new component, the brand new component, one that hasn't existed before, is a DVD that includes all 60+ videos for the AM and the PM program. So whether you use one or the other or use both, you're going to get all of the videos on one DVD, and it's formatted for a variety of uses on PCs, on Macs, and also on TV, DVD players combinations. So you'll be able to use it pretty much with any technology that you have the ability to use. Okay, the 24/7 Dad to Go app. We're very excited about this, as you might imagine. It's Android-based. We do not have an iPhone version yet. Now, you may ask, well, why did you create an Android-based version and not an iPhone version? Well, again, we looked at the research, and what the research shows is that the majority of men, in general, prefer and make up the lion's share of Android-based smartphone users. But specifically, because of the types of dads and the types of communities in which so many of you run your programs, this is also very important research to look at too, which shows that the vast majority of individuals and men in low-income neighborhoods use Android-based smartphones. And so those were the two bits of research that led us. If we could have afforded, frankly, to do both versions, we would have, but we just couldn't afford to do it as part of this third edition. And it can be used on any Android-based device, so it doesn't just have to be a smartphone, it could be an Android-based tablet. It includes the 24/7 Dad checklist in an app version. And as the dads complete their actions, it actually refreshes automatically based on frequency. So once they complete a daily item and they check it off, the next day it's gone. Anything that they don't check off remains, so they don't have to like re-enter it. It's something that lives and breathes and that they can continually customize. If it's a weekly item and they check it off, it refreshes the next week. And same thing for monthly. The one time doesn't refresh because it's just one time. Once they check it off, it's gone. What's also cool about this app is that it maintains a history of the actions they've accomplished for easy reference. They just don't disappear into the cloud, so to speak. They actually live in the history of the app so that they can go back and say, oh, this is what I did, this is what I did. And it kind of gives them a sense of what they've accomplished, how much, but also if they want to include an item again in the future and they want to know exactly how they worded it or exactly what that item was, they can go back in history and look at it. They can also set a reminder. There's an actual profile section that they complete when they first download and launch the app where they can actually put in a reminder on the specific day of the week to use their checklist. So maybe it's a Sunday morning or a Monday morning, something like that. A reminder will pop up to use their checklist. And then, as I said, it's more than the checklist. It actually includes information and links to free NFI resources. We have lots of resources on our website that are for dads specifically, as opposed to organizations. And so the dads can go there and they can access lots of free information that we continually update to help them continue to be a 24/7 dad, learn what we learn and what's shared with us on an ongoing basis to help keep them connected to resources that will help them be good fathers. It's free. We don't charge for it in any way, and you can actually download it at Google Play. There's the URL, and all you have to do is type in 24/7 Dad, and you'll see the application. And you can see screenshots of how it works. We will eventually have a demo available on our website. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get that up on our website yet, but really everything I think that most people will need to know about the program, want to see about the application, they can go to Google Play and look at the different screenshots. And frankly, it's free. You can download it, test it out. If you don't like it, you can get rid of it. Simple as that. Okay, so in a nutshell, why should I use the third editions? First of all, it integrates the latest research on effective behavior change. That's what we're really after. We're after changing fathers' behavior for the good of their children, for the father's good, for the mother's good, and for the community's good. And that if for no other reason to use the third edition, it's going to help you do that more effectively. It places an emphasis on helping dads channel and apply what they learn into practical actions customized to their unique situations. Very, very important. So the dads, are able to take what's going to work for them and figure out practical ways to apply that. There's a greater focus as a consequence on helping dads ingrain the habits of an involved, responsible, and committed father. There's more engaging content, primarily through the videos, that enhances learning and enjoyment for the dads and facilitators and retention in the program. Every resource for dads is now available in Spanish, with the exception, as I mentioned, of the online version of the checklist and the app. And there are a number of new tools that are very, very helpful and that are going to make this program more effective for you. The introductory session, the My 24/7 Dad checklist, 60-plus videos, the free 24/7 Dad to Go app, and the reminder reference cards. Okay. Poll number 4. Have you ever received formal training from NFI on either the 24/7 Dad AM or PM program? Krista?
Yep. Okay, the poll is launched, and I see people have begun to answer the question. So I'll give us a minute here and give time people to respond to that. Okay. Okay, terrific. Let me close this up and then I'll share the results. Here we go. It looks like it's pretty much split right down the middle. 53% say that they have received formal training from NFI, and 47% say that they have not received formal training.
Okay, great. All right, so that reflects the fact that what we pretty much know is that there are a lot of people out there who want formal training and find that to be very valuable. There are some people who feel comfortable just acquiring the programs and using them out of the box, or perhaps they just haven't had an opportunity to get training yet. So here are the options that we have available to you. As with all of our programs, facilitator training is not required. We learned a long time ago that it just wasn't practical and it wasn't effective to restrict training, to restrict running the program to only trained facilitators. But we do highly encourage it because it is very helpful, and we find that people really appreciate the formal training. We have different versions of it. We have 1 and 2 day live on-site training institutes for organizations. The 1 day can emphasize facilitating sessions or the implementation of the programs, primarily recruitment, retention, and sustainability, or both. But we do both in the 2 day version. So we emphasize facilitating the sessions in practice and also effective implementation of the program. So in addition to the fact that we can come to you, you can also come to us. So a few times a year, we offer a training at a hotel very near our headquarters in Germantown, Maryland, for individuals. So in some cases, an organization, for whatever reason, can't bring us in and to train multiple people. So we have an option for an individual to come and be trained just as an individual, maybe representing the organization, but just as an individual. And we do that approximately twice a year. And our next 24/7 Dad training is actually coming up in March. And you can already register for that on our website. That's March 11th. We also offer options via webinar. Obviously, the webinar version is not as expensive and it's not quite as effective, but it is still an option that is there for you, and a lot of people take advantage of this option as well. So we do that twice per year, and our next 24/7 Dad webinar training, which obviously will be on the 3rd edition, is scheduled for May 12th, 2015, and of course the March 11th in-person training at our headquarters will be for then as well, for the 3rd edition as well. And if you want to bring us out, that'll be a 3rd edition training too. We can also do, and this is a very unique version, but we've had people take advantage of this time to time, is a one-on-one customized training, one of our staff or a master trainer, where we can actually come to your location and sit down with you and spend time one-on-one and train you. And we have special pricing options for that as well. So keep that in mind. And just in general, for more information on the training options, you can visit our training page, or you can email our program support team and talk with them about the options that are available and what might best work for you. Okay, in terms of the cost, we are offering a special price pre-release. These kits will be in our warehouse for shipping in early February. So through February the 5th, we're actually giving a very, very significant discount, which is $200 off. So that's $449 per kit, and that includes everything that I've mentioned so far as the program components are concerned. Plus, it includes 10 handbooks. So standard that we include with all of our curricula are enough handbooks to run your first group with fathers. And so you could use the savings to purchase the AM program with booster sessions for non-custodial dads. For those of you who are aware, and maybe some of you have acquired these and used these, we actually have 5 customized sessions that you can add to the AM program for non-custodial dads. And they're called booster sessions because most organizations run them after the guys go through the 24/7 dad program, or they back at a later time to give them more customized training on things like child support, access and visitation, financial management, etc. And so you could actually purchase those together for $5.99, which is still less than what the regular price will be for the kit after this pre-release and introductory period ends. Now, after February the 5th and through March the 31st, we will give $100 off, so that's $549, and then regular pricing of $649 starts on April the 1st. We will continue to sell the second edition handbooks through the end of the calendar year, so we're going to continue to support the second edition for quite some time to give those of you who, for whatever reason, might not be able to convert yet to the third edition time to continue to use it and then to eventually move over to the third edition. And, of course, to purchase, you have to do is go to fathersource.org. If you want to purchase multiple sets, if you want to do a training, that kind of thing, obviously you can contact our program support team and they can help you with your order. Okay, and before we move into a Q&A session, if any of you have questions, I just want to thank you for your time, really thank you for your time, and encourage you to complete the post-webinar survey so we can get feedback on just how helpful this introductory webinar was.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, Chris. We do have a few questions for you already. The first question is, what is the name again of the book that you referenced earlier? And if you give me that name, then I will go ahead and type it and people can see it up on their screen.
Sure. It's called Switch.
Okay.
S-W-I-T-C-H. That's it. Just Switch. And the authors are Chip Heath and Dan Heath. H-E-A-T-H, like the Heath bar.
Okay. Chip Heath and Van?
Dan. D as in dog.
Oh, Dan.
D-A-N.
Right. That makes more sense. Okay. Terrific. Okay. Fantastic. And then the second question is, for those who do have iPhones, is there any kind of link or other resource to get the same information as Android users?
There is not. Now, I'm not sure what information you're talking about specifically. So, you know, there is not an iPhone, you know, app version, obviously, of the 24/7 Dad to go out. So there's not a way to get that same information, certainly in that same format. And the app provides, obviously, a brief description of these other resources along with links. So those resources are available to an iPhone user. They can link directly to them, but we don't have a particular tool for doing that. But
okay.
That's a good it's a good question, because maybe there is something we can put up on the resource page for iPhone users that at least they could go to that page and click on the various links to access it.
Okay, very good. There were a couple of questions about the second edition. One is, will we be offering a supplement to incorporate both the second and third edition together for those who have recently purchased the second edition?
No, we don't currently have that option available.
Okay.
That's why we're continuing to support the second edition through the end of the year to give you time to switch over to the third edition.
Okay. And then the other question about the third edition is whether the non-custodial dad supplements have also been updated.
No, those have not, because those are add-on booster sessions that we released just a couple of years ago, and we found those to still be, you know, very effective and not in need of, let's say, another edition of those sessions, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But they were completely incorporated. I mean, you could obviously add them, as most people do, to the very end of the 24/7 Dad programs as additional training. They don't but they don't include the same videos. There are some videos that are a part of that particular program, but not in as integrated a way as they as these videos are with the third edition. Hopefully that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And then another question is, how different are the chapters in the new fathering handbook compared to the second edition handbook?
When you say chapters, the only difference that you'll notice is the integration of the My 24/7 Dad checklist worksheet. So the handbook looks very, very similar, and it's just that we've incorporated this exercise that's done at the end of every session where the dads will identify potential checklist items that they can use for their final checklist that they'll compile during session 12. So they have to go back into the handbook and look at what they've written in the early sessions in order to make those selections.
Okay, great. Here's another one for you. Would you recommend using this curriculum with teenage fathers, age 16 to 19? I currently work at a juvenile justice facility and run a parenting group for young fathers.
Yes, in fact, we have some juvenile facilities that are using 24/7 Dad. We also have some organizations in the community that work with teen dads that are using 24/7 Dad. Obviously, it is not customized for use with those particular fathers, that it wasn't developed specifically for those fathers. We do have another curriculum that we are starting to recommend that people use with teen dads, and that's called Love Notes. It's an evidence-based program that was created by another organization that we now have an agreement with to provide, and that is another option for folks who are particularly interested in a program for teen dads. So I encourage you to look at that one as well. Now, it doesn't go as in-depth into fathering skills as the 24/7 Dad program does. It has more of a focus on some of the unique challenges that teen dads face around the relationship with the mother of their children. So in some cases, organizations may want to run both of those programs, Love Notes and 24/7 Dad, to give the teen dads kind of a very in-depth and comprehensive program that will address not just the fathering component, but also that huge challenge that they face in the relationship with the mothers of their children.
Great. Okay, here's another one. Is it possible to buy just the non-custodial booster sessions separately?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. All right. And is the company on a whole updating everything, or is this the most major update?
No, this is the most major update.
Okay.
We are releasing some new low and medium intensity products. For example, we recently released some tip cards. We're going to release a new pocketbook for moms in the coming months. It's focused on co-parenting. But as far as, for example, our curricula, this is the major update that we will do this year. We may move later on in the year to updating some of our other curricula.
Great. Okay. For programs with multiple facilitators, when they upgrade to the new edition, would each facilitator need to be purchased, a new guide for each facilitator, or can copies be made?
You cannot make copies, but what we can do is, in that situation, is in some cases we will allow folks just to purchase a facilitator's manual, and they don't have to purchase the entire kit.
Okay, great.
The thing you have to think about there is how much autonomy does someone have to, or does someone have? In other words, if they don't have access to the other components of the kit, are they going to be able to run the program? So, for example, let's say that your locations are very close together. Well, you may be able to purchase one kit and then share the DVD, but then you've got to coordinate, for example, when each person has the DVD, so we can actually use it to run the session. So those are some of the things you want to think about. But if you can make it work, then by all means you can do that. But you would need to talk to somebody on our program support to help figure that out and to actually place a special order for that.
Okay, terrific. And I just noticed one of our program support consultants just said to note that the booster sessions are called Father Topic Workshops for non-custodial dads, if you're interested in that. Okay.
Right. So, and that's a great point. So, when you go to order the curriculum, you have the option of purchasing what we call a bundle. So you can get the AM program with the booster sessions. If you just want the non-custodial dad sessions separately, it is a separate product, if you will, and that is called the Father Topics Collection of Non-Custodial Dads.
Great. Okay, I think that concludes all the questions that have been asked, and I want to thank everyone so much for attending today's webinar. If you need any additional information or further assistance, please contact our website or us here at the headquarters. We would be more than happy to assist you in anything you do, and we really appreciate your commitment to growing committed fathers in this country.